Let's talk about the final game released on the 3DS. Like, this is the last game released on the 3DS, and it was released this year. Persona Q2 New Cinema Labyrinth. I, you know, this game came out in June. I played it. That's when I first played it, and I just beat it last night. Uh, what can I say about this game? I think it's a bit of an improvement compared to the first Persona Q game. Uh, but there are some flaws I have with the game as well. Like the quests, like you do have these side quests that when you complete them, you unlock these special moves. Like you could just do it's like during the middle of a battle, you could achieve these like special moves, and you could deal these great attacks with the characters. And maybe I should talk about the story. This game it features a crossover of characters from Persona 3, Persona 4, Persona 5, and Persona 3 Portable, or at least with the female character, the female protagonist from that game. Oh, it also features Marie from Persona 4 Golden as well. And I was really looking forward to the voice acting. I loved the voice acting in the first Persona Q game, with the Persona 3 characters interacting with the Persona 4 characters. And I was looking forward to it. Then I started this game up, and only had Japanese voice acting with English subtitles. And I looked at the settings, like maybe there's an option to switch it to English dub. There isn't, and I was wondering why. Until one day I was playing the game, it occurred to me where there was controversy with that one voice actor, Vic Mignogna. What's it? That Vic guy. He voiced Junpei in Persona 3. And the reason why there's no English voice acting is because of the controversy involved in him. So I was kind of disappointed that there's no English voice acting, but oh well. What is you go to these dungeons? Each dungeon is themed by like a movie theme. One is a superhero movie, one is a dinosaur movie, one is a robot sci-fi movie. The fourth dungeon is a musical. And each dungeon has like a society meaning to it. Especially in this day and age, I'm like, I could apply every single thing in these dungeons to today's society. Like, it plays a very important role. Gotta take a drink. And the music is very catchy as well. The battle music, there's like not just one normal battle music, not two, but there's like four. There's a normal battle theme for Persona 5 characters. There's a battle theme for the female protagonist of Persona 3. There's a battle theme for Persona 4 characters, and there's a battle theme for Persona 3. And you can set up just to have one of these songs as the main battle theme, or you can set up as all of them. There's also DLC for battle music from the previous Persona games, and you can set up as like every single of those music to be the main battle theme when you're exploring dungeons. And that's it's really interesting that like every single battle you enter into, it would be like a different song from the playlist. That's free DLC. That's free DLC, by the way. And I think there were moments where like, oh, there's actually something they changed that is extra hard, but I can't remember it. But maybe I do remember like most of the changes being a more convenient. Uh, what else is there? I mean, this is actually not a bad send off for the 3DS. It, while I'm disappointed that there's no English dub, but the music is great. The music is fantastic. Just fantastic Persona music as always. uh, my one of my favorite battle themes from from this game is called "Pulling the Trigger." That's a catchy tune. And cinema. It's like what's the song called? Cinema Tale. That song is stuck in my head as well. Just great songs in this game, and just a fantastic send off to the PlayStation. No, wait, sorry, 3DS. And with the discussions of modern day society and such, I am surprised, and there's no mention of discussion about this game. Like, no one's talking about this game, and that disappoints me. Anyway, have a nice day. Please subscribe. I just got back from doing some dishes, and there were some thoughts that occurred to me, like, what were some things I don't like about Persona Q2? Because gameplay wise, it's a better game than the first Persona Q game. But there's like these little touches that made me realize, like, okay, maybe there is something I don't like about Persona Q2. Now, the thing about Personas 3, 4, and 5, they have these things called social links, or in Persona 5 case, confidence, where you hang out with some characters, access some character development between dungeons. In first Persona Q game, they have like this feature where you could hang out. Like the characters of the game will hang out. They interact with each other. And this acts as a little break between exploring the dungeon. Not only that, but it also works as character development for characters introduced in Persona Q, Zen and Ray. You know, over the course of the game, you're so familiar with these characters. You have an idea how they work, how they're. It's like you just have an idea of who they are. And Persona Q2's play, you know, for Persona Q2, they have a character named Hikari right here. And you don't really learn anything about her until the fourth dungeon in the game. There was actually a moment where I just completed the second dungeon, and there was like a cutscene. It's like, oh, Hikari, you changed. And I'm like, did she? Because I hardly know anything about her. Like, how did she change? And this was a cutscene after being the second dungeon, and there's no way of the characters interacting with each other because they don't have that feature that the first game did. So I don't really know Hikari as a character. And another thing is that the dungeons actually feel shorter compared to the first game as well. Like both games had the same amount of dungeons. Five dungeons. The last dungeon in the first Persona Q game is a 10-floor dungeon. An 11th floor where the boss is. And it's a massively huge dungeon. But for some reason in Persona Q2, the dungeons just feel so much shorter. It's a wonder I didn't, beat this game sooner because I was just going for the dungeons so fast. Even though I started playing this game in June and I didn't beat it until, you know, last night, because I was just too preoccupied with other games. But yeah, the dungeons actually do feel shorter compared to the first game. Not only that, but the dungeons themselves do seem a bit lackluster compared to how the first game is designed. The first dungeon in the Persona Q is an Alice in Wonderland dungeon. A dungeon similar to that is like the fourth dungeon in Persona Q2, where it's like a kid's coloring book. It's the musical dungeon, musical themed. And while the music does have a ongoing theme to it, the more further you go into the dungeon, I don't know, it's just the musical themed dungeon in Persona Q2, with the kids coloring book style, just it's not as interesting. In Persona Q, in the first Persona Q game, the second dungeon is is romantic themed. It was the cafe, uh, group date cafe. That's what it's based on Persona 4. Where like the first half of the dungeon, it's sweet with pinks and whites and it's romantic, but then like the second half, it's just creepy, like blacks and reds. Their teddy bears are cut up with creepy Joker slasher smiles. The third dungeon, there's like the theme is horror. Like the first half is like horror school, and then the second half is a horror themed hospital. That dungeon actually gave me the creeps. The fourth dungeon is like a Japanese festival, and like in the fifth dungeon, tower, like this giant clock tower, and it's just massive and huge, and it felt like you would go through that dungeon forever. And then with Persona Q2's dungeons, compared to the first game, they're a bit lackluster. Like, yeah, the first one, yeah, first dungeon is a superhero theme. You would just explore a city. Not that interesting compared to, let's say, something like the Japanese festival. Like Dungeon 2, you have like a dinosaur themed dungeon. You just go for the jungle, but nothing much changes the further you explore it. Dungeon 3 does have something unique to it. Like, it's a sci fi where, like, the first part of the dungeon is like the outside of the city, but then, like, you explore like the inner part of this factory during the second part of the dungeon, but I don't know. It just felt like the dungeons in the first Persona Q game are just more creative. And they also last longer and they're a bit more interactive, especially the FOEs, which are like these boss-like enemies that explore the dungeons that you have to maneuver and try to navigate through your map, trying to avoid them. Like the FOEs in the first game are much more interesting. In Persona Q2's place, yeah, you have like a dinosaur in the jungle map, but I guess that's nothing compared to like the baby with the creepy mask chasing after you in the haunted, creepy level, the creepy dungeon. It's just, the interactive scenes between in the middle of the dungeons that you do, when you go to the main menu, like that's gone in Q2. And the fact that the dungeons feel lackluster, like, yeah, okay, now those are my, negatives about the Persona Q2. So gameplay wise, it's a better game. But I guess those bits of, little details that would have made the game a bit more interesting is a bit lackluster. I think maybe it's because Persona Q2 has more characters you play with. You have Personas 3, 4, 5, and the female protagonist from the PSP version. Okay, this is the true end. See you later.